And when we were at the homeschool conference in May, I'm walking through the booth, and there's this lady, and she's like, Heather! I have no idea who she is.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm one of your followers in blah, blah, blah. You and her are friends.
We're friends.
You're friends with her.
Yeah.
And she is amazing.
She is amazing.
Her and I, she's going to be on in a couple episodes.
Awesome.
And her and I start talking, and we have tons in common. She's this amazing businesswoman who also homeschools her kids. And she is telling me that she goes to a church the same way that you do.
Home church.
Home church. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard of this.
Yep.
And I've lived in South Florida for 7 years.
Yep.
And we've struggled so much to find a church. Mm-hmm. We even live across the street from a church.
Sure, they're everywhere.
And that we drive almost an hour to go to church, and it's still not the perfect situation.
Right.
But they have a great kids program.
Sure.
And my kids need that since they're homeschooled. So my husband and I are like, okay, we'll suck it up.
It works for this season.
It works for this season. Mm-hmm. But it is not what we need for us in what we want with our relationship with God.
Yes. So I have a saying.
Okay.
The first time I heard it, it blew my mind, and I think it changed my paradigm forever. So this was probably 15 years ago. I'm at a church planting conference in Orlando. Our ministry is presenting. My president is doing a workshop. This room is full of pastors, okay? Senior pastors from all over the United States.
Okay.
There's this young guy who's like 24, just graduated seminary. He raises his hand and he says, you know, I've heard it said that Christianity began as a community of believers in Israel. It moved to Greece, where it became a philosophy. It moved to Rome, where it became an institution. It moved to Europe, where it became a culture or a tradition. And it moved to America, where it became a business. When you make a body a business, isn't that called prostitution?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, well, shut the front door. So he is correct. And this is the most awkward place to be correct. It's a literal bomb.
Everybody?
It's a literal bomb. There's just total silence. And after a couple of seconds.
Okay, that's also a lot to process. You got to think through what he just said, right?
Yes, it's a lot.
Whether you agree with it or not, you've got to think through the process and think, do I think that's how this worked?
Do I think that's how this works?
Yeah.
So at the time, I was helping raise millions of dollars from the institutional American church for missions. So their money with us was being put to good use. But I was seeing spreadsheets where I saw these big churches were bringing in $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on a Sunday.
It is not bad that there's a business aspect.
Sure.
Because anything that manages that much money,
sure,
even if it's a charity, a church, a nonprofit, needs to have a business aspect with it.
Totally.
Because we're called to be good stewards of our money.
Totally.
And so somebody needs to run those financials like it's a business. There's nothing wrong with that aspect of it.
Right.
It's what happens after that.
Depending on the church structure, the church is the easiest place for narcissistic leaders to get to the top and have absolute power. So the stats in the American church are that the same amount of money goes to missions every year as is embezzled.
Shut up, that's crazy.
There's a docu-series coming out in July called The Religion Business.
Okay.
That is going to, I think, open some eyes.
It's interesting that you're saying that because, again, we have tried a lot of churches and have really had a hard time finding a place that
feels like home.
Yes.
That's because families don't meet in stadiums.
Right. Well, we've been going to the same church for, I don't know, maybe 4 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know a single person there.
Correct.
How crazy is that?
So 4 years. I just was talking to a friend who's been in this church for 10 years. She's coming out of it, joining kind of our collaboration of house churches we have going up in Jupiter. And I asked her, is there anyone that you've developed a relationship with over the last 10 years that you'd want to invite? And she's like, no.
No.
So how is it possible that we're going to church,
but
there's
Sunday.
very little relationship, very little life? The early church was a group of spiritual fathers and mothers raising up sons and daughters in their everyday life. In the book of Acts, no one went to church. They didn't go to church. It wasn't a building. It wasn't an event. It wasn't a time or a day.
It was a group of people.
It was people who just did life together, and they were so dangerous, they set the whole modern world on fire. And today's church is very tame. It's honestly like Satan has put us on a leash.
Well, and so that's my husband's constant complaint. So he grew up in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Yeah.
And Christianity isn't the most popular thing there.
Correct.
And growing up as a Christian family there, their preachers were a lot less, I don't know the right word to use, but they talked about the topics that a lot of ours choose to avoid.
They were for real.
They were for real.
In China, you're not like a for real pastor if you haven't been to jail for 3 years. Do you know how many American church leaders would get weeded out of that process super fast?
Yeah.
Like everyone who's not for real is gone.
Yes.
Because you're going to jail.
Right. Well, here you get canceled if you say those things. So then we would have no preachers.
Sure.
And so I feel like my husband is a lot better with some of the Bible stuff than I am because he's had his whole life the type of preacher that was talking to you about those subjects.
Yes.
And so he regularly thinks our sessions are watered down. We do have a favorite preacher we watch online out of Georgia.
Okay.
But it's really interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think
need
it
to
was
look
doing
into this.
life together. I think the other thing that happens is people are just sitting in pews and they're not learning to walk in their spiritual gifts. Because if you're in a church of 500 people, the only person who ever has an opportunity to exercise his teaching gift is the pastor. But if you're in a house church with Kelsey, everyone gets an opportunity to exercise their teaching gift.
So it's interesting you say that because when I was getting married, my husband's mom asked, well, does she have a relationship with her preacher? Does she know him? And my husband's like, no, there's 20,000 people in the church. How would she know the preacher?
Okay, so it's impossible for a guy to shepherd that many people.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why the average church size in the United States is about 120.
Okay.
Because you can't really disciple more people than that.
That makes sense.
So,
And in their defense, they do have other, there's not one guy, right?
Sure.
They have a children's pastor, they have a this and a that for different locations. So
sure.
they do have
and some big
structure.
churches are healthier than others.
Yes.
You're going to hear a little bit of maybe jaded in mind because I'm coming out of a super unhealthy one up. Anyway, so I'm coming out of a situation where I'm really glad to be in the house church and really glad to be out of that system.
I think the house church, because most people don't know this about me, I am like really introverted.
Okay.
And even though people see me on stages talking to thousands of people and I'm on like social media and I can turn into this really extroverted appearing person, I like hide in the back in all of these scenarios. And so to go to people's house is a little bit like, ooh, then I got to talk to everybody.
But what's amazing, so I asked Kelsey, what do you miss about big church? And she just laughed.
Hiding
She's
in
like,
the back.
nothing. She said, nothing. There's literally nothing. She's like, my husband actually has like dudes who surround him and hold him accountable.
Okay, so
he's grown more spiritually in 1 year than he grew there in 10.
And so my husband has been desperately searching for some men who are married with children.
Right.
Because where we live in South Florida, it's normal to be 40, 50 years old and thinking, I'm gonna get married someday. Right?
Right.
And so he has guy friends, but not a single one of them are married or has kids.
Whoa.
So he's like the only one.
Yeah.
Which is totally insane.
Yes.
And so he feels really alone and he's like, where are my tribe of men?
Yes.
And you would think that they would be at church, but he hasn't found them there.
But there's not real opportunities for connection and like doing life. So anyway, we're really excited to be embracing something new. And for me, a book that I read that literally blew my paradigm, like messed me up. So like, do not read this. If you are in church leadership and you don't want to get messed up, don't read it. But there's a book called Unchurching.
Okay.
Kind of like the idea of unschooling.
Yes.
And the byline is Christianity without churchianity. And it just messed me up in all the right ways.
And how long have you been doing it this way?
On and off for about 8 years because my husband and kids also enjoy like the programs and the tradition and the routine.
Well, you
so
could
we
probably
kept
do
doing
a
that
little
for
bit
a
of
while.
both, right? Your
For
kids
sure.
could still do some of the kids' programs and
Totally.
be involved in that, but your Sunday
Sure.
routine is your
Sure.
home church.